going to learn how to design and string a bracelet. Organize your beads by size and color. A bead board is ideal to use. If you don't have one, use a towel. Place your largest bead in the center. This is going to be a total of 7 inches long. I'm going to continue placing my beads, trying to create balance on both sides of the center bead. Remember, this is not a symmetrical design, but it's a balanced one, so I want to keep the size and shape similar on each side of the center bead. After you're happy with the placement of all your larger beads, spread them apart and place in some smaller beads, along with some flat spacers. Those really act as accents in your piece, and it also breaks up the heaviness of the larger beads so that it looks a little lighter. You also want to be careful when you're stringing bracelets that you don't have too many large beads side by side. When you're wearing the bracelet, that can prevent it from laying nicely on your wrist, and it can look a little bit jagged almost as it lays on your wrist. So by putting in those smaller beads, it will really smooth it out so that it forms around your wrist in a pretty way. Also, you want to string your bracelet in a way where it's not going to be spinning around your wrist all of the time with the clasp showing in the front. That's why we anchored it with a large bead in the center. The weight of that and the weight of the clasp in the back will really help keep it in place. Now that you're ready to string, you'll want to start at one end of your design and string in order. Make sure there's a knot at the end of that string. You'll notice that some of the spacer beads I chose have very large holes. What I do with those is I string them 2 together and I place a smaller bead so that they actually go over that smaller bead. It just creates a really nice little detail when you look at it closely. Check to see if your bracelet measures about 7 inches long. Add in the size of the clasp. That may make it too long. Do you want to add maybe a fun charm before we finish this? Take some time to measure it to your wrist. Imagine how much space the clasp will take. If it's too long, remove an equal amount of beads from each side, like I'm doing. Be really careful when you are cutting the beading wire because that end can go flying. I try to hold it with my fingers or cut my hand around it. Decide if you want to make any final changes to your piece before you start doing the clasp process. Now you want to take 2 of your crimp beads, string them on to one end, working at the end of your string. Now take one end of the clasp, double back down through those crimp beads. Take your needle nose pliers and squeeze them flat. Go ahead and tug on them to make sure they don't move. Make sure they're lined up evenly. Go ahead and cut off the extra wire. Move your beads to the end that has the finished clasp. Cut off the knot. Again, string 2 crimp beads. The other end of the clasp. Double back down. Pull the end of the wire so you're left with a small loop. Bend your bracelet to make sure that it bends comfortably and that it's not too stiff. Go ahead and flatten the crimp beads. Tug on them, make sure they do not move. Make sure they're lined up nicely. When you're happy with that, go ahead and cut off the extra wire. And now you have your finished piece.